Hey, this is Robert, and thank you for tuning in to Station Square. And yeah, I'm just really excited for today because, well, I'm not excited for the heat wave. I'm definitely excited for today's interview that we got here. And this is something that has been in the works for, gosh, a while. Because, like, you know how it is, scheduling can be pretty tricky. And of course, as you know, like, us actors have, like, a lot of stuff on our plates, but nonetheless, we're finally gathered here this lovely evening and just before the Paris Olympics. So, yeah, I just realized that today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Miss Kimberly Yates that is here and we're finally doing this. So, thank you so much for joining me on this lovely evening. And yeah, I'm just so stoked that you're here today. Like, oh my gosh, it's been quite a, but we finally did it. Hooray. So, how are you
Amazing.
doing at this lovely evening?
Super good. You are the last of my interviews today, so I guess save
Really?
dessert for last, right? Best for last.
Yeah, you got to save that dessert for last. I actually
Hmm.
didn't know that. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of dessert for last, I feel like I have food in my teeth, so let me get that out. That's an exciting start.
Yeah. Yeah, well
Done. Oh,
we just always got to keep things engaging, you know what I'm saying?
that's right. Keeping it real.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I guess to start this out, like just share a little bit about what you've been up to because I know you've been extremely just doing a lot this year, like in 2024. So what is something that you can, or at least some of the stuff that you can disclose as of right now? But yeah, just tell us a little about how 2024 has been going and yeah, how how have you been doing? Like give us the deets.
Yeah. So 2024 has been super fun. Uh, I guess the big project that I've been working on that I'm really excited about is I wrote a play called Le Joie, a play about suffering. And we did 9 months of workshopping that finished in 2023, where we would take a period of time, like a week or in one case, a month, and we would work with actors and designers because part of the play is devised and devising part of the play is devised, part of it's improvised, part of it has a lot of music, and part of it is just traditional playwriting. And that's not to be sort of it was not to kind of be different. It's because the plot, the story, when I wrote it, it needed all these different ways to tell it most effectively. And so there's a big scene in it. It's about 33 minutes long that really where more heads are better than one. And that's the one we devised. And so it's a lot of devising. Are you familiar with devising at all?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Devising, just sort of, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a democratic process. So instead of just the designers deciding what the design is and then the actors rehearsing it, everybody's in the rehearsal room together and we create it from the ground up. They tend to be pretty multimedia because, you know, the lighting guy will be like, oh my gosh. And the sound girl will be like, wait, let me compose this real quick. And so um, it's just a really collaborative process and very time consuming, but the time is worth it. And so we started, it was a progressive set of workshops. So at first we did like the first 20 minutes of the show, and then we did the first 40 minutes of the show. And then we did, you know, we kept adding until we did the whole thing and got lots of audience feedback. And there's a lot of original music in it. So I'm rewriting a couple of songs now, and then we're ready to produce it. So this year has mostly been about meetings and just trying to get collaborators on board who have a similar vision or understand the vision of the play. So that's what 2024 has been about, making La Joie happen.
Oh boy. That definitely sounds like it's a quite packed schedule that you've got there.
I mean, I try actually to not pack so much that I can't enjoy the process. and stay healthy in the middle of the process. So I try to really be thoughtful about scheduling so I can still, sleep, and not just sleep, but also enjoy it. You can get so focused on making something happen, making a show happen, a career happen, whatever it is you're working on, that you forget to enjoy the ride. On Tuesday, this week was packed and it was rough. There was a lot of obstacles. Sometimes there's just those weeks where there's lots of no's or there's lots of new issues coming up. And I have this little app. I don't know if do you know this app called Finch? Do you know this?
I actually do
It's
know. I've heard of it. Yeah.
do you know so it's the silliest thing. It almost looks like it's geared towards kids, maybe, but it's like you have a little avatar. It's like a little bird, mine's a bird, they might all be birds. And it's basically, for me, it's like a productivity website. I mean, I'm sorry, a productivity app. It's like you you can put in goals like for the day or for the week or for the month, and you can put them on a schedule, and it's just a way to make lists, but then you get points for, and then you get little things in the game if you do things. And so I just started keeping my list in there a couple months ago, basically because a friend, how people send you the friend request, and then I guess they get points if you join. So, okay, whatever, I'll join this. But I really love it now, because I used to just email myself my list. I would email, and then when I would add something to it, I would just, the email would add and add and add. But this one is more organized. I can, assign it to a certain calendar day and all that kind of stuff. Well, so often on my list, I have like 89 things. I'm not even exaggerating. There's a lot of things to do in a day. And that doesn't even count. I don't even put the big things on the list, like rehearsal or the stuff that I know I have to do. It's sort of like email Robert back. It's like stuff like that. So Tuesday, I looked and I had 68 things left, and also some big things in my schedule that I had to go do. And I'm like, why am I doing all of this? And I didn't have a lot of time, but I stopped and I sang. I remembered, I like to do singing warm ups like 5 days a week, but I didn't have time to do that. So I remembered that I had a 2 minute, 33-second warm up a friend and I had done years ago. So I sang for 2 minutes and 33 seconds. And then I was like, I'm just going to go look back to an old dance class, maybe one I taught, maybe one I did. And I only had time to do like 12 minutes of it, like just like not even a quarter of it. I did some turns, a little bit of choreography. And just by taking that 12 minutes to dance and that 2.5 minutes to sing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is life. This is why I'm doing this. So in my schedule, I try to be good about still loving the ride and still remembering and practicing the creative process and the parts that I love that bring me life, because I don't think I can bring anyone else life unless I start there, right? Like we give out of our abundance.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, man, hey man, that is really beautiful because oftentimes we kind of feel so like we got to do like a million things all at once. Like, we got to this at like 9 o'clock or 11 or that. So it's just kind of it's kind of like one of this stuff where it's just like, it's so interesting that we sit down and we really think about, oh my God, yeah, this is why I kind of came back to this. This is why I kind of fell in love with doing this to begin with, because it kind of feels like most of the time we're just kind of on autopilot, and I don't like to admit it, but yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it really does feel like. Yeah.
It's good to hear that someone else has that happen too, right?
No, yeah, like I'm also a voiceover artist. Like I have my booth behind me and everything. So there's just days where I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm just on the computer. And even if I'm not recording auditions, I'm doing this. I follow up with emails. I have to literally remind myself when's a deadline for auditions, which is literally what happened to me this morning. I do workouts and yeah, so I literally had to remind myself, okay, so I got to submit these auditions and before like 3 or 5 or what have you. And then I was out and about all day today, like, running errands, and now I'm back doing this, and I don't even know what's gonna happen like after I wrap this up. So it really do be like, I know people say it's like the 9 to 5 grind or whatever people say that it is, but it's kind of like, yeah, it really is like nonstop. Because but we fall in love, we really love doing this because I know it's like, oh my gosh, this sounds like a lot of work. When do you sleep? Like, I've gotten comments like that before, trust me. But it's kind of like, it's because I just love doing it and because my brain will not stop moving in a million miles per hour in every single direction. So I gotta live with it.
Did you make
Jeez.
your deadlines?
Deadline, I did. Yep.
Nice job. Good work.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do because sometimes you just kind of be tasked with so many different. That's why having a schedule. Like I would just go on Zoom and I would just put down like, okay, I got an interview here, da 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 da, da, and I would give reminders. So that's a good thing. Or I got this, I got this little watch here that just helps me, keep track of how many steps I take. It's one of these Fitbit watches that just reminds me, okay, just stand up, walk around, just do whatever it is that I need to do. And this thing is so helpful. I love looking at it. So yeah, that's kind of what keeps me in the zone?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Great tool.
yeah. So questions. I haven't even asked my questions here. We could have been spending like 10 minutes just blah 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 blah, but I've got questions for you. So, um, I guess the first one that I would typically ask is, how did you get started? But I just wanted to go into like because you kind of mentioned like, oh my gosh, I fell in love with this. And what was that moment in your life where you're just like, you know what? I think I was bitten by the acting bug. I kind of wanted to give this a shot. Like, I wanted to take this more seriously. What was that moment in your life that you realized I could do this?
When I was 3 years old, I told my mom that I wanted to pretend for a living. And I promise you that was the moment. That was the moment. And I never strayed after that. Because of what I was maybe had a facility for in school. Sometimes I think people, teachers, parents thought I was going to go different directions, but I didn't even know what acting was. I just knew I wanted to pretend. It was kind of a funny thing that happened. I was dusting for you know how parents let you do chores that are really like they probably have to go and dust after you, but I used to like to dust like when I was a toddler. I'm sure I wasn't doing good work. And I was doing a commercial in my head. I was like looking at the camera, the pretend camera, and I said, for a complete shine, use, and I could feel in my hand that the normal can that I usually use, which was Pledge, was not like this was it wasn't an aerosol can, it was a spray. I was like, oh wait, this is not Pledge I'm holding, but I'm on camera, I'm on my invisible camera. And my mom, I'll say that my parents are not education pushers, but for some reason, my mom taught us all to read like while we were toddlers. It was like no other education pushing, just that. So I was like a new reader. So I say, for complete shine, oh no, I don't know what it is. And I was just like going to fake it, right? So I said use, and I looked at the bottle, and the name of the brand was called Complete. And so because I had that little moment of like kismet or something, my little tiny toddler brain was like, oh, I'm really good at pretending. This is what I have of value to give to the world. And I sometimes forget that story, but I think it's important as actors and performers to remind ourselves that telling stories is is a valuable skill. Pretending, playing, playfulness is valuable. And of course, we don't do it like children anymore. We do it on a sophisticated level. Uh, and I mean, hopefully, we keep some of that childlike life, but we just have lived more life. So we have more to bring to the table. And I have to remind myself to go back to that 3-year-old who no one had ever told me pretending was a job. I didn't know what an actor was, but somehow in my brain, I knew what a job was, and I knew that pretending was a kind of currency that seemed valuable. So that was really where the origin story started, just dusting a coffee table.
And I would often hear stories of like, oh, I was working at this cafe or at a shop and, I was helping the tables. That's usually the story. Well, not always, but actors for the most part, we kind of have to work in these survival jobs just to make ends meet. And, every now and then it's kind of like that every so often when you have that one little moment, it's just like, oh my gosh, now everything just makes sense. It's just, dude, I can actually do this. So it's just whether by sheer luck or coincidence, like sometimes it really does amount to like luck, the timing, perseverance, just all of that definitely plays into fact, comes into place, which interestingly enough is kind of segues into the next question that I have here. But yeah, it just kind of is true how so many of us, like, we're working for so many, like, we have these jobs, then one day it just kind of suddenly it's just kind of like, God might be shining down on you or whatever crazy coincidence happens or whatever just comes down your way. And then some people, they might make their big break, or others, it's just like it's a door open, that it's like a door opening for them, and they started getting their names out there. And then sure enough, like, it doesn't always happen overnight, but sooner or later they're just continuing to put in the work, and they're still, doing what they love doing to this very day. And that it just really inspires me. Yeah, I'm kind of a kind of like a bit of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, so yeah.
Aren't we
Um,
all?
exactly, exactly. So I said that I was going to segue to the next question where apparently you kind of, when you were a child, you kind of started, and this kind of plays into how you started going into the anime voiceover stuff, where you're kind of acting as a child and then you kind of got, okay, so I might be misremembering, but did you get discovered, or were you did you get auditions for your first anime roles? Like, I just wanted to refresh just
Yeah,
of your story of how you got into anime. Yeah.
so for anime, I I basically, the short story is I went with my parents to a wedding. It was like a Saturday morning, and I don't think I knew the people who were getting married. I can't even remember. I'll have to ask my mom. But there were people that we knew that they knew at the wedding, and there was a woman named Sharon Papa who had worked with my mom before. I think she'd worked for my mom, and she was dating the owner of an anime company called AD Vision. And he was talking to my dad, and I just ran over to say something to my dad. And his name was John. And my dad just said, "Oh yeah, just talk to me for a second." And John said, "Oh wow, you have a great voice. Has anyone ever told you that you have a voice that's?" And I said, "Well, no, but." And then Sharon walked up at the same time and said, "Oh, but she's in acting school, like, or takes acting classes, like she's an actress." And so it was literally just that kind of accidental. Um, just it's who you know. I do a lot of panels with well, just different people, so I hear their stories as well, and at a lot of like cons, conventions, and people always want to know how you get into it, and we all understand it's a super frustrating answer, because the answer is almost always that someone fell into it because of someone that they knew. I do think you can have a little more agency than that, but I think if you want to go into anime or anything, actually the smart way in is to cast a bigger net, and then is to say, "Oh well, I want to do voiceovers, or I want to act," or and then see where the world finds you. Sometimes if it's too tight of a target, you keep missing that target, but then you realize, wait, I might not end up in at that point, but I might end up, I might not be in anime, but I might do a superhero film, or So yeah, I'd say putting yourself, because if I hadn't gone to the wedding, then if my mom didn't make me go to this wedding, then I'd have a very different story. So getting yourself out there, so to speak, obviously just going to parties and weddings is a little too random, but taking class, meeting people, going to auditions, getting coaches, getting to people that know your work. Because I think it would have been one thing if John just came up and said, "Oh, you have a cute voice," but it's because Sharon sort of walked up at the same time and said, "Oh, and she is studying to act, or she's in acting drama class at school." So it was sort of the combination of getting yourself out there, doing what you can, what's in your control, people getting to know you and your work, and then, as Shakespeare says, the readiness is all, right? You don't have control over the ladder in this industry. You don't have control over the ladder, but you do have control over whether or not you're ready. So, when the opportunity comes, you can say yes to it.
Bingo. That is, oh boy, that is something that I keep saying on the show. It's like one of the most often reoccurring pieces of advice. It's literally just that. Showing up and being ready for the opportunity. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've worked with so many different studios, like you've worked with ADV, Crunchyroll, Funimation, and all of these companies that are located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So, I guess working with ADV, how would you say that working with all of these companies has helped you really find your niche in the business and really growing as an actress in person with the experience that you got dubbing anime and so on and so forth?
Well, I think so. ADV was the first big one I worked for, and well, it was just the first one I worked for, and the last one I worked for was actually Amazon Studios. One of the last ones I worked for, and I would say, regardless of the studio you're working with, that what doing voiceovers in general, but particularly anime, which is often recording, not always, occasionally I have recorded before the animation is done. And that's always fun because you have lots of freedom. But a lot of times we're doing the dub, so we're recording after the animation is already done. And then you're syncing to the lip flaps, right? And you have engineers, or an engineer who is fiddling with it and fiddling around, but you're also working with the director to rewrite something sometimes, because you might need to end on an open mouth flap or a closed mouth flap, or just find ways to make it believable and interesting, but also to fit the format that's already there. And I think starting so young, working in that way, working with those kind of parameters, has helped my instrument, just that it's helped me to see everything as an opportunity and nothing as an obstacle from a creative point of view. So I think I was, trained so early to have these really tight parameters. I mean, you walk in and they play you the original voice, and they might want you to kind of match that spirit. Sometimes you have the original voice playing under your track. Not always. Sometimes they'll turn it down, but sometimes they won't, or sometimes they'll let you hear it right before. So you kind of have that rhythm in your head, even though it's in the language. You also, you can't create the movement if it's already drawn. You have to kind of physically match what that is. And to have those really tight parameters, but still be creative within them, is just been so helpful. Because, also the early part of my career was, when I became an adult, was I did a lot of Shakespeare, I did a lot of classical work, and there's parameters there. There's a rhythm, it's iambic pentameter, there's I've worked with a lot of writers that are very particular, because they're heightened language writers, with like, you missed that comma. I mean, you said the line perfectly, but maybe you just didn't have you didn't acknowledge the comma. And I can work within very rigid guidelines and still find my own life. So I think that's what working with anime has done for me. And then also when you take those handcuffs off and when you let me go wild, then I really appreciate the freedom. But I also really love the parameters. I kind of like the whole spectrum of how to work. And I think of it a lot of times like that. I think of the work as like, how much is a blank page? Like, how much do I always say to my clients, I'm also a voiceover coach and an acting coach. I'll say, how much blank space is on the page? Like, what is your job to fill in? And where do you need to kind of just jump on the bandwagon? And so I kind of think of every project as how much blank page do I get? What is my requirement? What is my responsibility? And where do I need to fuel this other vision that's come before me?
It's pretty good advice because oftentimes we have to feel, because I kind of studied like Meisner and so it's kind of like the who, what, where, that level of acting. So it's kind of like, asking the questions of like, okay, if I was this character, how would I be reacting? Or, what is the relationship with the response? So I kind of, it's kind of going through that background, but hearing it from your perspective, it's really cool. Not gonna lie.
So if you're Meisner trained, how does that affect your interviewing? Do you ever catch yourself wanting to repeat what the person said and accidentally turn it into a Meisner exercise?
Meisner exercise, not really. Like, this is not something that I kind of think about very often of like, I don't, because most of these are kind of, off the cuff. So I don't ask like, okay, who, what, where, blah, 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 blah. I
Right.
don't really
Yeah.
ask like the same old, because it would
Right.
just kind of be really repetitive. And I just kind of wanted to mix it up and just ask questions that are specifically related to the guests that I have and not
Sure.
always go with the same questions every
Yeah.
single time.
Right.
Yeah. This is why I
Yeah.
kind of change it up every so often. Did that answer your question?
Sure did. Yeah. Thank you. And it makes sense too.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Yeah. Um, so you got into voiceover as a child because you've worked on shows like Samurai Showdown, and you also did, I think you told me a while back that you were in Neon Genesis Evangelion and Read or Die, Devil Hunter Yoko, and so many, way too many titles that I could just literally just pull up this big list of stuff that you've done, and we probably would just be here for like minutes or so, but for some of your standout roles, what would you say was the thought process of getting into each character, like getting into each of the role that you played so far?
Particularly for voiceover or just for acting in general?
It could just be for acting in general, but you could also just say it also applies for you in voiceover because acting is acting is acting. So,
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
what's your
Well,
process?
acting is acting, but I do think the goal is the same, but the process is different. So for voiceover in particular, there's a lot of NDAs and there's a lot of times, well, I don't think I've ever gotten the script. I think for Read or Die, I may have gotten a synopsis, but I didn't get the script. I've never gotten the script beforehand. Usually hit the studio. And like for instance, the latest Evangelion, there was you got nothing. No, like you didn't even get. In fact, when they called me to ask, I had to sign an NDA to even find out. Someone
Mhm.
called me on the
Yeah.
phone on the plane and then said, we're going to email you an NDA to have this conversation. I was like, conversation about what? They're like, we can't tell you. And so then I had to sign, I think I signed like 10 NDAs for Evangelion. I
Oh
get so
my,
nervous, like,
wow.
what can I say? Because they just didn't want any spoilers or anything out there.
It's those
So,
NDAs, man. I would get those too. Yeah, yeah. I
so
know
many of them.
exactly how it is. Yeah.
And so you can't really do, that's all to say, you can't do prep work in anime the way I might do on a film role um, or a stage role where I have the script way in advance. You literally walk into the studio, and then they're like, you get you sign your contract and get your script at the same time. And so you're going in completely cold. And occasionally that's not true. Occasionally you'll know the name of I mean, you'll often know the name of the project. Okay. If there's any source material before, like if it comes from any kind of like manga, or like, if there's a graphic novel or something, then I'll try to, I'll look up that. I'll look up whatever information I have. But so often I don't. I might not know anything about them. And so if that's the case, then it really is like the way you create the characters. So is just very quickly. It's in the first 5 minutes of the session. The director talks to you, and you decide what sound you kind of want, and then they kind of explain who they are, and then you go. And what's interesting about the anime process as opposed to any other process is there is not time to read the script and to make like elongated decisions. Like I've sometimes been doing a role and we'll get like to the end and I'll think, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known this there because it may have changed the way I played that. But I think that is kind of sometimes the magic of anime, is that you were really only offering a linear performance. Occasionally you'll go back and clean something up. Or I have before said, if it's been in that situation, I've been like, hey, can we go back to scene 4? Can I read? Because now that I know what happened in scene 18, so they give you a synopsis, but they're not telling you every single line. So for anime, it's just literally on your feet, making fast decisions, making bold choices, big bold choices in with the director, and often the engineer is there. And so it's sort of like they're not directing you at all, but you can kind of you feel what they're reacting to. If they laugh at something like during the discussion, you're like, okay, that's a good direction to go. Whereas in a play or a movie where you have it ahead of time, the character work is more intricate in some ways because you just have the time.
Yeah. So I wanted to quickly highlight some of the projects that you've done because I know you did Samurai Showdown and one
That's the
anime that
first
I've
thing.
been,
That's the
yeah,
first thing I ever did was Samurai Showdown.
yeah. So that just opened more and more doors into the other shows that I kind of mentioned earlier.
Sure. You want to know anything about a specific one, or
Oh
just
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah, no, yeah, so I Samurai Showdown was the first one. I got in from that wedding, I got invited to audition for that. And then I did a callback for that, and then I did that. And then the next thing I did, there was they just called me straight to callbacks. And that's the I was gonna say the last voiceover audition I've ever had. I had one other audition for a video game once, and then it's all just been based on body of work, or word, like you know word of mouth. People like working with you, and then they suggest you to someone else.
Yeah. So
It's a
after
small
Samurai,
world. It's a tiny world.
yeah.
It's a little tiny world.
Oh yeah, yeah. That it definitely is. So after Samurai Showdown, like you've also did so many different shows over the years. Like one of my I guess it's a show that's sort of like I don't know if it's like my comfort show, but it's like one of those shows where it's like you watch it and I mean that's kind of like the same as like when you watch something from say something that was dubbed or something that was made in the 90s and then you kind of go now and then you watch so many other different shows that are like the whole recording process is so different now than it is back in the day, but I don't know, I just kind of go back and watch some of the earlier shows and it's just kind of like oh yeah, it just really brings like a soft spot in my heart. It's just kind of like, it might be the nostalgia in me talking, but I don't know. It's kind of like I just kind
Fun.
of feel it is. Yeah, it really is fun. It's definitely a fun time, like
Which one
especially in the
is it?
90s. Yeah.
What
Oh, I'm sorry.
show? Which show are you talking
Well, actually, it's two shows. First is Devil Hunter Yoko, and the second, I just watched it for the first time recently, Gunsmith Cats.
Right, yeah. Both of those loved both of those. Minnie May, which is my Gunsmith Cats character, she resonates with a lot of people. She's so fun. She I got to play opposite Amanda Winley. And often you're recording in a studio by yourself or at your home by yourself. But Amanda and I, because she directed me later, we've gotten to know each other. But even before we got to know each other, it's so funny. It depends on who records first, right? So if they've already laid Amanda's track down, then you get to play off of it. But if they already laid mine down, then she gets to play off of it. And Gunsmith Cats, also Tiffany Grant was in that, and like Rob Mungle. There were tons of names in that, and there was so much special about that show. First of all, the artist, he actually flew from Japan to Chicago, took a lot of pictures. So it's like the animation's like photorealism in a way. In fact, at a convention recently, someone told me that in Chicago you can go on a Gunsmith Cats tour. So they'll show you like our house. You can go to the train station, I mean the police station, some of the alleys or different buildings where we had like fight scenes or chase scenes. It's obviously you can go to the big, um, the all the kind of the river and all the really recognizable stuff in the in the city itself. What is it, Michigan Avenue? But so it's all very realistic, and that's super fun. And then there was a reboot of it in 2019 where Amanda and I did the commentary, and I believe the director Matt Greenfield and Tiffany Grant also, I think, did some commentary on that version. I'm not sure if I think that we were the only four that did commentary, but Minnie May was so much fun. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know this because they sort of try to bury this. They always clean up. I appreciate this. They always clean it up, the animated versions, a little bit. Sometimes the graphic novels are a little more graphic. So she's actually an ex-prostitute, um, explosives expert. So she's 15 years old in the series. And what's actually happened to her is she lives with Raleigh, and Raleigh is technically like her foster mom, although they act much more like sisters. And there's some little Easter eggs apparently. I guess it's the police commissioner's wife who kind of rescued Minnie May a little bit. But you don't know any of the backstory in this series. Like you don't get to hear any of that. They keep it real clean. But there is a little Easter egg with the commissioner. Like you can just tell that they know each other. And so, or like at the police station, you can tell they know who she is. So there's just tiny little Easter eggs for people who do know the source material. It was fun for so many reasons. It was fun because there was just so much action. There was so much humor. And I think Amanda Winley is just one of the most spectacular voiceover artists, and getting to play against her and bounce off of her. And really, like I said, that cast was so deep. Rob Mungle, Tiffany Grant, so many people to bounce off of, that no matter what point you got into the booth, there was someone fun to play off of. It's just a great series. It's well drawn, it's well written, it's well acted. And then the new version, the reboot in 2019, where they cleaned it up, they did all this. I don't know, I'm not a techie person, so I don't know all the digital. They did their digital magic, and they also released new some new stories and some new kind of graphic novels in both Japanese and in English, and that's all kind of in this DVD set. And it's really exciting. I mean, it's just exciting, and it has such a fun fan base.
Yeah. So I'm going to continue this in the next part, but if you enjoyed this so far, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all in part two. Sorry. Welcome back, everybody. So, yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying the last time, I was about to say that Gunsmith Cats, it is definitely one of those shows where, oh my gosh, it came out in 1990s. Wow, so like late 90s here. So, yeah, for most of the shows that came out during that time, this was like during like this whole anime explosion that just came out because we got Dragon Ball Z, there was Sailor Moon, Pokemon, Cowboy Bebop, and of course we got Evangelion. So we with all of these shows that were coming out at around that time, it was like we were starting to get exposed to a lot of to this new art form of animation that we have characters that are very much more complex, more, and there's, I mean, it kind of goes like, oh yeah, anime is like more action based, and there's a lot more like stories that are centered around like the worlds that they inhabit in, like this crazy world building that they build into these shows,
Yeah.
and with the character dynamics, and it's just very interesting if you're watching something on, because I remember when a lot of this stuff was on Toonami on Cartoon Network way back in the day, and when you got the DVDs and VHS tapes, you kind of often find movies where you watch like live action or animation, but you pick up this Pokemon VHS or watch it on TV, and it's like, oh, something about this is kind of different, and then you realize, oh, oh, so that's how. Oh, okay. And then you learn the voiceover process of like, oh, so that's how they do it. It's not like, because in animation it's like ensemble. Like, did they record it all together? And then it turns out no. A lot of the stuff they record. I mean, now they especially record from home now after 2020. But with a lot of this remote recording, like it's all done one at a time. The same goes for video games. So there's a lot of this stuff that you kind of learn about the more as you kind of get your name out there in the business. So when you were a kid and just learning a lot about of the dubbing process and just really getting to meet all of these people, what has been something that is just kind of like, okay, since you kind of came from like a stage and a theater background and going into voiceover, would you say that it was like a smooth, like a seamless process for you, or was there still a lot that you just had to still be like, oh, I did not know about this, or oh, okay, so this is da 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 da. So it's pretty much a lot of the process that you kind of already told me, but was there still a lot of like, of just having to learn a new, like this brand new voiceover experience? It's just kind of like, coming from a stage background, what has been some of the biggest that you kind of had to, I guess, really get the hang of, like in order, like as far as like dubbing or just for voiceover in general, that you weren't, that you just had to, just learn as you go along the way. Yeah, when it comes to a lot of the process of VO and whatnot. And yeah, I'm just gonna stop talking.
I think, I think it all kind of happened at the same time,
Yeah,
so I'm still learning. I'm
yeah,
always
we're
looking,
always learning every day. Yeah,
yeah. And I think the skill is the same no matter what you're doing. The process is different. And so what's helpful is to, when you realize the process or when you're exposed to the way things are done, then how do you format your process? How do you make that work for you? And I think voiceover, first of all, voiceover is, even within itself, is very different. Everything is Q to Q. I've never ever done anything that's not Q to Q. I've never ever been, no, that's not true. I was about to say I've never been in a booth. I was going to say I've never been in a booth with other actors, but there was one other time I was in a booth with other actors, but it was for a live action film, and we were adding Foley of our own voices, like party scenes and stuff like that. And that is the only time I've ever been. There was maybe like six of us. And other times I've always been alone in the booth. And so if you can imagine, that's a very different process than if you're on a film set or a stage or a rehearsal room where you're always with a lot of people. So I guess the biggest difference in the process for voiceover is really, like you talked about, world building. is building that whole internal world and building that whole dynamic and that relationship basically with like a blue screen, basically with someone that is not there. And so there's a lot of imagination work. I also think it's very helpful to let yourself be super physical in the booth. Um, so I move a lot, and if she's running, I'm I might not be running, but I'm creating the energy of running or moving, and you sort of start to learn even how to play with your voice and the microphone. I mean, most of the time you want it right into the directional mic, right? But sometimes, if you're screaming, you might pull back a little bit, or if you're throwing your voice over, if you're talking to someone in another room, like you learn to play, to just create a full world with limited tools.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love how I can literally just, type or write this stuff down. And because this is something that is not only very informative for me, but it can also be informative for the audience. By the time once this kind of goes up everywhere on the socials and everything, and we can do like one of those, what do they call it? Like a replay of some of the best advice or what people do for podcasts. Like, yeah,
That,
this could be something that could be good for later. So, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. It's good for me to
Yeah,
think about this stuff.
exactly. Because like you said, never stop learning. Because it's like
Never
you're
stop.
learning as you're talking. So that's pretty interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many shows like Blue Sea, but like I'm literally there's just a lot that is just coming up. Bubble Boom. So
There's a
yeah,
lot.
just yeah, there's a lot of 90s and 2000 shows that you've done. Just like I
Mhm.
said, I don't think we have the time to go through each and every single one of them, but for Devil Hunter Yoko, because that's the other one that I mentioned, where you play
Yeah.
Azusa Kanazaki. I hope I'm saying it right, and Azusa number two. So getting to play these two characters, which are kind of I don't know if I should give spoilers, but yeah, just playing these two
You
roles is
can. If you haven't watched it by now, you can.
yeah,
It was so fun
yeah.
to, yeah. I mean, what a dream come true for an actor. I've had a lot of moments like that. Like in Evangelion, I played Hikari when she was like a kid in school, like wearing a uniform. And then she was one of the ones in Ava that she grew up. And so in the latest one, she has a baby, she's married and she has a baby. And how many people get to grow up with a character? I mean, that's amazing. And then getting to play in Devil Hunter Yoko, I mean, that was just getting to be both sides of something is so cool and fun. There was also another time I talk about this. I don't think anyone is so excited about this as me, but in Dragon Knight, I played Luna, but I also played the dragon, and I played like when the dragon actually didn't have any dialogue, but the dragon has mouth flaps. So I asked the director, which was Matt Greenfield, if I could, who was Matt Greenfield, I asked if I could make up a dragon language, and he let me. So you can hear me kind of, it's like gibberish, but in my brain, my actor brain, it meant certain things. Like the dragon was saying, a lot of it was like, you know, expletive, sort of like no, or I don't want to do that, or yes, or very sort of simple language. But that was super fun. And I think that's one great thing about anime is because you're not trapped into what can you do with actual props and actual sets, and or even see, because it's all a drawn world, because it's all animation. It's like the sky is the limit, and so you do get to do crazy things that you wouldn't do in a live action film. And that it's just super fun. It's just, I mean, who gets to play a dragon? Who gets to make up a dragon language? Who gets to play, the same character grown up? Just so fun.
Yeah, because it was definitely one of those shows that was kind of unique at the time because having the concept of, these warriors that are fighting against demons and then sooner or later we got shows like, Demon Slayer and so on and so forth. But I think this is kind of like one of the early, I mean, I might be mistaken. There might have been other anime that came out that kind of dealt with this concept of like, yeah, we got to slice and fight, all these creatures.
Yeah.
But I think this is kind of like one of the first I distinctly remember, when it comes to this show in particular, because, and I also bring these shows up because they don't get talked about I guess in the fandom or the community. So it's just kind of like one of those, shows that doesn't really get much attention, but, it's just stuff like this that is just so underappreciated, in my opinion.
You know, it's one show that I don't think gets enough attention, and I wish they would bring it back because there was talk about continuing it,
Uh,
is a show called Soul Bianca. That was so fun. It was a bunch of women in space, and I just loved that. I think we maybe did 3 episodes. I can't remember how many episodes we did, but I know there was talk of more. And if anything was ever brought back, I would want it to be Soul Bianca. It was so fun. It was like funny and it was creative and it had all these great female parts. I believe there were 5 of us. I think it was 5 of us on a spaceship. And it was just like it had an attitude and it had a sweetness and it had a sense of humor, and it was exciting in terms of world building because we were on a spaceship, so it had that kind of feeling of, you know contained but also huge. So because we're out, it's like out in space but also trapped on a ship a little bit. um I loved it. Soul Bianca. So any fans out there of Soul Bianca, bring it back. I will say this, the anime world is very responsive to fandom, very responsive. Like, y'all can make things happen for sure. Y'all can make things happen. It's happened before. So bring that one back.
yeah. Then now I got another show to check out as soon as I have my little free time, whenever I get some free time. Good
That's
golly.
right.
Yeah, and then for Evangelion, because that is definitely one of those, that is, when it comes to I consider that to be like the gateway show, where it's kind of like it is one of those 90 shows that you kind of watch and then you realize why it's kind of like groundbreaking because it deconstructs like the mecha genre, but it also delves into mental health and there's just a lot of themes that goes into it, like religion, just embracing just your fears and everything. There's just so many complex themes that haven't really been explored in anime at the time. So seeing something like this is pretty refreshing. And I know it's also kind of controversial for the final last couple of episodes and also some of
Yeah.
the movies, which, as beloved as it is, I do know that it also got flack for just being an anime that is kind of like, and also had a really, quite a tumultuous behind the scenes history, which is pretty interesting. But not to go into that because I wanted to talk about your experience of being on such a really big show like Evangelion. So I just wanted to talk to you about your experience of getting to record for Hikari Haraki and just, yeah, which I also hope I'm pronouncing it right. But yeah,
Yeah.
so getting to being in such a very large just franchise and then getting to play this character. Yeah, just tell us about it and your
It,
memories of getting to be in, in this show and and all the anime you've done,
so
pretty much.
so when I first did Genesis, Neon Genesis, right? The first one, I wasn't aware of how it fit into the anime world. Like I didn't get it. And I played Hikari and I was the kind of she's the kind of know-it-all, teacher's pet, and the annoying one. And I remember it and it was fun, but it was, quote unquote, another day at the office, another day at the studio. Um, and it was when I got called for Hikari, Hikari 2.0, I'll say, because the most recent, the Amazon uh, Ava, that I started understanding what a giant franchise it was. I wasn't a part of the Netflix one in the middle, and I didn't even know about it. Like, I was completely unaware. So until later, I knew about it later, but I I don't think I knew the scope. I mean, that's the one where if you mention that, people are like, and even non-anime fans, like a lot of just film fans know that show. And I think it's because, like you said, it has so many important themes. And Amanda, when Lee and I did a podcast together in, I want to say 2021, may have been 2022, where we do talk about some of the themes. We talk about religion, and we kind of go into depth about some of just the Japanese cultural influences, uh, and unpack it a little bit, because there's just so much. I mean, you could do 24 hours and you still wouldn't unpack it all. And I love some of the ambiguity, and it really is a story that invites you to think about your humanity, right? To kind of, I don't want to say write your own ending, because obviously there's an ending, but it doesn't it doesn't cram it down your throat. It definitely leaves a lot to the imagination. And I don't know if you remember, but so Hikari, when she grows up, her job is to teach the lead, who is actually kind of a facsimile of herself, right? So she's trying to teach her how to be human. And so I had a lot of dialogue that where the character would ask my character, why do we say goodnight? And I don't remember what the exact line is, but most of my lines were something like, well, because we hope we see each other in the morning. And there was a lot of hope in it. And there was something so cool about the writing of it. If someone really didn't know what it was like to be human, and suddenly they're witnessing all of our constructs, everything we've constructed around being human, like things like greetings, or just the practices that we have, what would this clone, like the things that the clone kind of noticed were odd, and then Hikari's way of explaining. And because Hikari is a new mom, so there's a baby in a lot of the scenes, or there's a baby around, there's just this sense that she's teaching the clone, but that she's also teaching a little human. And I think Ava does that so well. Evangelion kind of never loses an opportunity to make something cohesive. You see that throughout the show. Like, it's always thinking bigger and broader and rounder and more human, which is one, I think, super valuable thing about it. And also, I don't really want to give a spoiler, but there's a kind of my last scene, that I think it's the last scene that I'm in, it's definitely the last scene we recorded, where I experience something, my character experiences something pretty dramatically sad. And to be able to have a whole arc where most of my function in the show is to explain what it is to be human, and then to get to experience one of the most tragic human things that we experience, again just shows the brilliance of the construction of Evangelion. It's almost like they're always thinking full circle, and for each of the characters, who all and it's so funny in that story, B lines are not really wild B lines. It's like everyone's an A, there's A stories, there's B stories, there's C stories, but it almost feels like in Evangelion that everything is an A story. Like, they put as much care. Sometimes, when you're playing in a B story or a C storyline, it feels a little bit like it got dashed on the page. You're just sort of comic relief for your exposition. You're some kind of connector story. But in the Ava series and all of them, all the Avas, I feel like there's really no B or C or D or E story. It's like everything is fully written, fully fleshed out, and really thoughtful.
Yeah. Because for anybody who's seen the show, like, it gets pretty bleak, man. Yeah, like,
But it also is pretty bright. People will say that. They always
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about how dark it is, but there's a
Yeah, it's
lot
so
of love, a
depressing.
lot of
Yeah.
brightness. And look, I'm not going to give away the end. Sometimes
Yeah, I'm not
people got,
either.
but people got upset because they wanted it bleaker in the end. Because I will give away this much. It's
Either.
the end is there is cover your ears if you don't want to hear, but there is hope. Like the Ava franchise is, it's always leaving you with this with some hope, which is I think the way the world works. Actually, I think there's always hope.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like one of the main messages that um, the show is just wants us to have. It's despite everything getting bleak, because there's moments in your life where you're just gonna be feeling like, oh my gosh, like what to do. But then you watch something like this where it just gives you like the sense of, especially with the newer Evangelion stuff, that has just been noticeably more optimistic as far as I can tell. So yeah,
Yeah.
like there's always just, and also that might be due to the fact that I'm pretty sure that those that have been doing homework about Evangelion knows that the creator of of this franchise also went through a bit of a depression, but then he was able to get out of it. And so that's kind of the reason why some of the newer stuff is more like, on an upbeat note. And it's not as, um, pessimistic. I don't know if I want to use that word. It's more like, and it's not so much as a downer as, the original series. Well, most of the original series was. So, I might be wrong, and anybody in the comments, you can feel free to correct me on this. Take it with a grain of salt. I always am a component for like, hey, look, listen, everything I say, just take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, that's just pretty much Evangelion in a nutshell. It's a series that is full of ups and downs. That's pretty much the basic outline that I could give for the show for those that still haven't seen it.
It's so hard to go on these shows and talk about it, because without getting into the weeds and without giving spoilers and without giving details, I feel like I'm being cagey sometimes, because I'm like trying not to say so many things. But to your point, without going too much into the weeds, if you think about the premise of the whole thing, like it can't not be dark, right? Like, um it's just the whole premise is, it's a challenging premise, right? So I think that the ability to inject hope into that, or in any of the lively bits or any of the funny bits like that, it's kind of, it's like what we're dealing with life, kind of, right? Like life is, as you say, there's just, it's tricky, it's full of obstacles, and I think fighting for joy is the bravest, most fierce thing you do. And that doesn't mean burying your head in the sand and ignoring, again, it's so hard not to use phrases from the premise, or not to, talk about the particularly what happens in the show. But yeah, I just think it's a really good fable, or like sort of parable about life.
Yeah. Oh yeah, bingo. That's kind of the way that I was seeing the show, because we can often talk about, oh, like the show, it could have some pretty messed up stuff, like characters go through the worst trauma that you can possibly imagine. But at the end of the day, there's It's always still hope there's still a light at the end of the tunnel, and we are vessels that are brought into this world to bring more happiness, just a lot more like this, to make the world a little less dark. Because I know there's some crazy stuff that is going on right now, and the best thing that we could possibly do is it's just come together, talk about this stuff, and just strive to be the best that we could possibly be. That's really all that we can do at a time like this. Spread awareness about what's happening, be aware of the heartache and pain that's going on, and just use your platform for good. If you want to
And
use the platform for I don't know. I can't. I can't really speak for anybody who has a public platform, but that's the way I see it personally.
yeah, and I think that embracing some of the darkness as the texture of life,
Mhm.
I saw these two exhibits close together at art museums, and one was a Klimt exhibit, and it was all darkness, it was all pain, and it had a lot of descriptions about his life and what he went through. And I remember just kind of leaving and feeling like I needed to take a shower or something, and and not being that excited about the exhibit. Not that he's not a wonderful artist, he is, but this particular exhibit was just kind of bleh. And then the next day, I saw another exhibit that was called Shadows, and it wasn't one artist; it was a bunch of different artists. And some of the art was not always at a as high a caliber as Klimt, because it was a lot of artists, and you had, I think there was a Raphael in it. You had some like really amazing stuff, but then you also had just like some very old, you know, pieces of caves or like unknown artists. And so the technical prowess of the artist was quite varied, but the subject matter, the theme was shadows. And if you think about it, it's called Shadows. So it was a very dark exhibit. There was a lot of like murder, or, it's called Shadows. It was dark. But in order to have a shadow, you always have to have a source of light. And that contrast. I remember talking to some of the people that I went to both exhibits with the same people, and saying, the Klimt exhibit was all pain and suffering and darkness all the time. And I get it, but it's like, one of my friends, she was so funny. She's like, I wanted to say, stop screaming at me. Cause he has the scream, but it just felt like the exhibit was screaming pain, which is important in life. So you need to hear people's pain for sure. But then from an artistic point of view, when you have the contrast of the light and the darkness, even if the darkness is primary, having that light and having that contrast is, it's just very interesting, it's captivating, and it feels more true. If you were to show the opposite and it's too much light, it's just all brightness, and we're never recognizing the pain in the world, well, that's not a good story either. Because, or that, there are stories like that. I don't want to pick on certain networks or certain, storytelling vehicles, but a lot of those, maybe certain kinds of kids shows that are just like, it's just feels like drivel, because it's just, everything is bright, everything's a punchline, and even the sadness is fake. It's not sort of really plugged into what we have to deal with in life. But I think, to from an artistic point of view, to be brave enough to lean into both the darkness and the light, and to be skilled enough to do it simultaneously, that's what we recognize as truth, and that's what makes your audience connect to the material. I wrote a play recently, called La Joie, a play about suffering, and it's just that. It's so sometimes we've done a bunch of readings of it, and it starts really joyful. I mean, it has many joyful parts, but there is one really dark scene, and like you can literally hear the audience sobbing while the scene is going on. And afterwards, people are like, wow, that scene wrecked me. What, I thought this was going to be this fantasy, blah blah. And I would say, the title warned you. It is called La Joie, which means joy in French, a play about suffering. And I think that, but audiences have really responded to the levity in the show, but they've really connected to the suffering, because really that's something all humanity shares. None of us are going to get out of life without catastrophic loss. It's not going to happen. We all have to face it, and the courage to also find the joy and look for that source of light that's causing the shadows and to move towards the light. I think I
Yeah.
think that that's where where the good stuff is.
Yeah.
Says the eternal optimist. I understand I'm totally idealistic. If you want to talk about my idealism in the comments, I'm going to agree. Like for sure, I'm idealistic, but that also needs balance. So I find that I like to work with, or people in my life with, a lot of realists, also other idealists. But it's I just like contrast. It's just about contrast, and that's the thing about the Ava franchise is there's so much contrast. I also love my title, Read or Die. I mean, first of all, that's a hilarious title. Like, think about what that means, read or die. But just wild contrast. It's interesting and it's true.
Yeah. I was about to ask you about Rate or Die, but there you go. Yeah.
Read
So,
or Die, I loved.
yeah. I'm sorry, were you gonna continue?
No, just Yomiko. Like the she's a reluctant hero, and who doesn't love a reluctant hero? She just wants to be in the library or with her rare books. She doesn't want to be
Yeah.
saving humanity, but well, she's got this special power with paper, and I just think what was all just that a reluctant hero is so fun to play. There's so many levels to play with, but also what I loved about that project was Amanda Wynn Lee. Speaking of her, she directed that project. And a lot of times in anime and in animation in general, we do, especially the characters I play, it's a little brighter. It's a little because it's clear and it's crisp. But because Read or Die is such a self-selecting literate audience, like it's so, there's so many historical bits and it's pretty brainy. So Amanda said, you have my permission to give it some nuance. It doesn't have to be so bright, it doesn't have to be so crisp. This is a character that can, and this is a show, and this is an audience that can embrace, complicated nuance and a little bit of messiness. So I do feel like there's a little bit of sophistication to Read or Die. Of course, it's Read or Die and it's wacky and but it also has some pretty fun little grace notes in there. So I just love that project.
Great stuff. But I do wanted to quickly talk about, your LA experience and also getting into SAG, which, oh boy, this is a pretty interesting. We kind of picked a perfect time to talk about SAG-AFTRA because we're on strike against video games using AI. But yeah, your experience about joining SAG, if you can, if you're comfortable talking about it, of course, because I haven't really, I don't know everything about what, if anything's still finalized, so I don't know, things are kind of still up in the air, but tell us about your story about joining SAG, if you can.
Uh, so that is the reason why I stopped doing a lot of anime, because once
Mhm.
I doing more
Yeah.
film, there are some anime projects that are SAG, and there are some video game projects that are SAG, and those are the ones I do. And then there are ones that aren't. So there's, that's it. And I think, I think a lot of people have talked about it. I don't think I have anything to add to the conversation. Just that as times change, contracts have to change, because you, when contracts were written, certain things didn't exist. And, my dad was telling me something interesting. He was reading some article. It used to be that a generation, I guess it still is a generation of people, is 30 years, like a 30-year gap is the generation. Um, I don't know in terms of what model, but that used to be like what was considered a generation. But then there's a new kind of what they call like a technological generation. He said this article was saying, and that's only 2 years, not 30. And I was talking to my sister-in-law about it, and she said, yeah, like she has 4 kids. And even the way that the 4 kids, there's like 2 years difference, and then 3 years, and then 2 years. And she's like the big kids, the way they deal with technology is so different than the way the little girls deal with technology. Just only being a couple years apart. I mean, they're all great at technology, but things are moving so fast that you're just the way you interact with it changes. So I think as AI is moving so fast, we have to continue to update the way the business side of it runs.
Yeah. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. So, I don't know if there's anything else. Like, I wanted to go into a section where we kind of listen to some of your past work because I don't know, it's just kind of something fun that we can do and just be like, so yeah, have you watched any of your old stuff? And it's kind of like as a way of like, oh my gosh, yeah, this takes me back, and or if I don't know, because one question that kind of often comes up is like, so do you often cringe at some of your past work, or are you still proud of it? That type of thing. I really wish I had time to do a part where we could just listen to some of, your previous anime stuff and yeah, just for nostalgic. I don't know.
I
Maybe
mean,
that could be a
if
new
you
thing that
want
I
to
could do
take
for the
a,
show.
I don't know if you do you want to do that now? Do you want to take a few minutes, or are we not going to do that? You tell me.
I mean, I do got like a couple of minutes, and maybe we could do that for part three, and just coming up in a little bit because let me see here, it's almost 7 o'clock. Yeah, I still got some time, so yeah, we'll just do it for part three. So another first for the podcast, listening to old anime performances. So yeah, this should be pretty fun.
Okay,
Um, yeah, so I guess in part three, we'll just listen to some of your work, and yeah, just take a trip down memory lane, folks. Let's do it.
let's do it. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Yep. I'll see you all in part three. Alrighty, let's share. Alright, let me know if you can hear anything. I'm gonna start right now.
I just went out and got dinner. Don't be such an ingrate.
I'm really sick of Chinese food.
And I'm sick of the pizza you always order.
I'm not that bad, and you know it.
Seriously, what do we do about that ATF guy?
Hold it. Where do you think you're going with those?
Rally, there's smoke grenades.
No explosions in the house, May.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to stop you and say, I do remember seeing this clip before, and I'm not someone who gets super, like cringy about my old work, but things I wouldn't do. So I would never stress a pronoun now. Like, and I say something, blah, 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 you, blah, blah. Now, it could have been that the director told me to do that, but I think we almost never do that in life. So that's my first take is I hear, the things I'm like, oh, no, don't stress that pronoun. So we can keep going.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna fast forward
Sure.
this.
Right.
And then also I can really hear my Houston accent. I love the screaming stuff. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and so much you can do it one day before you start, your vocal cords start screaming at you, but love the screaming stuff.
Oh yeah, because I know with a lot of screaming sounds, especially for
This
anime,
was as much
it's
your
like
idea as my thanks.
yeah.
Hey, chill out, May. I wasn't serious.
Damn it, Rally, give me back my pup. I'm not kidding. I'm getting angry.
I just love how sisterly they are. Like all the
Yeah.
bickering is super fun.
You alright?
Yeah, it's kind of like the sisterly relationship that you guys just brought together. Now, oh yeah, this scene.
And it's always so connected, right? Like he that fight wasn't just it was for a plot reason. It was to get me on the floor so that I could see what I needed to see. And I love how this whole series is constructed like that.
Yeah, and what's especially impressive is like everybody. Oh wait, hold on.
Thanks.
So
There's
Tiffany
Tiffany
was
Grant's
this character,
character.
right?
That's
Yeah.
Tiffany Grant's character.
Yeah, that is Tiffany. Yeah.
Sink
So
in your closet.
Be able to move.
And the men will just have to come
yeah,
to
I
you
was gonna
instead,
say
Rally.
too. It's
Just a
like
taunting little sister kind of thing.
See?
yeah.
They're
So
here.
what's really amazing about some of the early dubbing is
Take them
like
off now.
So
yeah.
for a lot of this stuff, you guys, everybody had to record one-on-one for a lot of these, correct? Like it was just you in the room and not Amanda in the
Yeah,
same room.
always.
Like how did it
A
all
hundred
work?
percent of the time, always.
Yeah. So I thought it was really fascinating because with the chemistry that y'all had, it really does sound like a lot of you are kind of like pretty much in the same room, if you get me.
I get Instagram DMs all the time
Man.
asking me about certain things. Like I got one the other day about asking me about Tiffany Grant. People are always asking me about other people. And like Tiffany's a perfect example. I've never met the woman, not one time. We've never spoken on we've never directly spoken on the phone alone. Now we have I feel like we've been on like a conference call.
Yeah.
But people think we're like best friends. I mean, I love her work, but we don't know each other. And so that's part of the trick, what we were talking about before, is creating this whole inner life and all these relationships with human beings that you never ever meet or know. I think another one is like Spike Jones. I don't know Spike Jones, but I've worked with him so often. And we've never met in person. And then there are other people that I know really well who I have met in person, like I don't think I've ever done anything with Jay Hickman, even though we know each other so well. Gareth West, we've never technically worked together on something. I think I was gonna say Olivia Swayze, but I think we have worked on something together. But yeah, it is funny how that works.
Uh, I was like,
Excuse
oh,
me,
this
sir.
here is,
I'm looking for the Mono family. Do you know them?
Ah,
Monos?
oh yeah,
Huh.
such a sweet character.
Well, let me think. Nope, no monos, but then you kept.
It's just kind of like
can
exposition.
you turn
So,
it up just a tiny bit?
oh yeah,
It's in
my bad.
Kishu between the Nara and
All
Wakayama
right, here's you and Amanda
prefectures.
again.
Hama's famous landmark is Koya, the largest mountain in the Shingo Range. Close to Koya is another mountain named Gomendanzan. Now, if you travel south from there, you will encounter a village best known as the birthplace of the famous Heian feudal lord Abenosemi. That village is called Ryujin, and the valley between Ryujin and Gomendanzan is called Komoridani.
Yeah, I got all that.
So I want to say that I'm very
I'm so
impressed with my younger self for being able to say all that so fast
I know, right? And I noticed with a lot of,
match
yeah.
the mouth flaps.
Oh yeah, especially the mouth
Demons,
flaps
just like
too.
you, Miss Yoko.
Well, I don't think.
I'll do anything. Chop wood.
And that,
cut
we
wood,
call that,
no,
or back in the day, we call that Scooby Dooies. I
Yeah,
love
this,
all the like little Foley Scooby Dooies we get to do.
together, Miss Yoko.
yeah.
Devil Hunter in
Oh, and
training
here's Tiffany
at your
again.
service. Miss Yoko is going to train me to chop demons.
Azusa, this is my best friend Chigako Ogawa.
Yes, and I'm also her business manager.
Wow,
and
demons! I
publicist
really
and
heard my accent on
I also
that.
make loans.
Yeah, because a lot of the anime, a lot of the dialogue is kind of like, oh, there's a lot of enunciation here that I'm noticing. We have to
Did you hear
enunciate everything.
Amanda's? She's
It's
so
our
good at those
turn
little
devil
screams.
hunting into a profitable
Oh,
business.
wait, hold on, let me go back.
Let us handle your ghost-busting needs reasonably.
And what's crazy too is like she voices Rey on Evangelion, and I
Yeah.
did not even know that until like after I looked at the credits. That just shows you how
Yeah,
good she
she's so good as Ray.
He's up, are you? Of
Yeah.
course. Where everyone can see them? It's just good business.
I'll help you, Miss Chicago.
Hey, that's the right attitude, Azusa. Come on, let's cover the town.
Okay. I'm going out now, Miss Yoko.
Azusa!
Yeah, so this show is like what I consider like a lot of English dubbing is like I know that a lot of actors, especially if they come from a stage background, there's a lot of projection and there's so much of because if you're going from the stage, then you're behind a microphone and then have to really be told to bring it down a notch. Yeah, I bet that must have been kind of didn't it feel weird when you're told like, okay, just bring it back compared to like because you've had this
I don't
stuff
think
on
they ever had to
stage.
tell me that. I think it's just, I think your instrument calibrates to the room you're in. Like no one's gonna talk like they're. If you have a microphone in front of your face, you're not gonna talk like you're speaking to 1,000 people. So I
Yeah.
think it's pretty. I think you can pretty much just trust your body. to be in the room that it's in.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a lot to do with the mic technique as well. I mean, listen. Oh, hold on.
All right, maybe those construction workers were wrong when they tried to hurt your sacred trees, but that doesn't mean that you're justified in using violence against them.
I mean, this is kind of like one of the examples I was talking about.
Azusa Kansaki,
Oh, here we
Devil
go.
Hunter! In training? Huh? Ah!
Oh, the screams, man. Yeah. So this was
Oh,
pretty
it's
much
so
like,
fun to see Azusa. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen this in so long.
yeah.
Wait for me.
Yeah, like I said, there's like a lot of anime out there. I also kind of really like the art style of the show. I can't believe I haven't
Yeah.
brought it up. Yeah, because it's like, it's kind of like, it's sort of expressive, but at the same time, it's very action-packed as well. It definitely fits like the retro 90s, you know, type of shows that we were getting at the time.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, this scene.
It is fun when you're in the when you're just discovering for the first time. I mean, the right when I record it, it'll be the first time that I see it, right? And there's something
Yeah,
so fun about that. Like you don't, you kind of, as I said, you get a synopsis, but you don't know how it really plays itself out. So to get to see the animation right as you're doing it is super cool process.
yeah. Because I
Because
know with
we'll
a
be just
lot.
excited as we're like, oh my god. Sometimes you'll catch yourself watching as an audience member, and then the director's like giving you direction. You're like, oh right, I got to do this. I got to pay attention.
Yeah, because for a lot of this stuff, it's pretty much cold reading what we have to do.
No, it's all cold reading. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's all
I think
all
I've
cold
learned a
reading.
lot from this
Like I said,
experience,
I
Miss
think.
Yoko.
Continue. Oh, were you gonna say something?
Oh no, just yeah. That I think maybe for Read or Die, I got pages like an hour before we did it sometimes, but all the rest is completely cold. Man, thanks for the walk down memory lane. That was fun.
Oh, it's the
Oh yeah.
little doggy.
Oh, I like this scene.
Oh, you're tickling me.
Yeah, we all love our dogs.
True.
Can I have breakfast too? I thought you were trying to lose some weight.
Well, diets were made to be broken. I can start again tomorrow. I make great pancakes.
Cool. Every time I cook, the smoke detector goes
Hey,
off.
can I have mine with 2 scoops of butter?
So, fun fact about Tiffany Grant, I actually did have her on my podcast twice, a couple of years ago, and she was just, absolutely just, she is phenomenal, and, she's just absolutely sweet, and just talking about a lot of, she even remembers a lot of the stuff that, she recorded back in the 90s, like the first time that she was, like, I think she got her start in like 94, if I'm not mistaken. So, and she just remembers the days of when she recorded the first anime that she did and just going down the memory lane with Evangelion and, let me see. Uh, I'm trying to find some clips, but yeah, but I was just kind of trying to say, like, with a lot of the Evangelion, like, she would just go through memory lane and just telling us about her stories about on stage and theater and just getting to play so many different characters. And when it comes to ADB in particular, a lot of y'all were kind of like in the same projects together, like recording on so many different shows, and not all of you guys are in the same room. So it just is so amazing that back in the day and even to up to now, it's like so much of this stuff that everybody is often saying like, "Oh, are you guys like, did y'all record it together?" Like, no, it's kind of like separately, but it really does sound like y'all are in the same room together. It really
Mm.
does.
That's thanks to the engineers, really fantastic engineers and fantastic directors.
Yeah.
There's
I'm
still
trying.
some really great directors working today, like John Swayze's one. Certainly the
Oh
just
yeah.
just the care and love that people put into it, and a prepared
Yeah.
director is someone that can and a skilled engineer. There are people that can just create that,
Yeah, and it's just
just
really
that,
magical. Yeah.
yeah, that just kind of magical where it just feels like it's all happening live and in the room.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a shorter one because time is definitely running out. But yeah, this is kind of like the alternate reality, kind of sort of a spoiler for those that haven't seen Evangelion. But yeah, I'm just showing these clips because I know people just constantly ask, like, oh, how's it like being in the same room? Well, this is how the process went. Like, everybody gave such natural performances, and you kind of would swear that they're in the same room, but no, everybody just did separately. So if you watch this scene right here, you could have sworn that everybody just recorded it together, but once again, one person at a time. So and there's a lot of characters here, so let's take a listen to this, and then we should be done for tonight.
Nani?
Oh, wait, no, not it.
The perceptions of others.
Ah, this is it. Okay. Oh, hold on. I want to hear Amanda's alternate Ray.
Oh, crap! I'm late! I can't be late for the first I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
really
keep in mind,
kid. I'm really sorry.
this is a different Ray because the Ray that we hear in this show is kind of like really soft-spoken and
Wow!
monotone. So this is
So
quite a
did you see her
contrast.
panties then?
Well, it wasn't a good look, really.
Oh, Spike
Just
Spencer.
a little flash.
Oh! I can't believe it that you're the one who has all the luck! Oh, what'd you do that for?
Exactly what were you just talking about, Mr. Suzahara? It's time to put that idle butt of yours to work. Change the water in the flower vases.
Oh, she's mean!
Did you just say something?
Poor Toji's so carpetbagged. It's sad, isn't it?
Look who's talking.
Hey, are you saying that I'm
merely reporting.
Stooges. Just look at those three stooges. Have they no shame? All right, stand up, bow, sit down. Listen up, dudes. We've got a new blue-haired babe here to introduce
This
herself.
is classic.
My name's Rei Ayanami. How's it hanging? No! Ah! You're the jerk who was staring at my panties! Hey! What do you mean by that? You're the one who was flashing them, you know. Who are you and why are you defending him? Are you riding his balloony pony? No! We're just really good childhood friends. You shut up! Be quiet, you two. We're in a class, not a bar. Hey, this is more entertaining than class. Go on. I want to see how this turns out.
Hey, Shinji! You didn't tell me you were getting it with Asuka!
I see. So this is another possibility. Another.
Alrighty. Wow. So that was a trip down memory lane. I'm just gonna stop my share. Yeah. That was
Yeah, thanks for the trip down memory lane.
Yeah, let me turn on my light here. So the funny thing about that, like the last section where you see like the script and everything, I think that was because they ran out of budget, which is usually what happens with Evangelion. So it was just so interesting just getting to do this for the first time and then just taking a trip down memory lane, which, I probably might start doing it for the podcast, maybe once in a blue moon, but yeah, this is just something that I wanted to do just as something special, just to, mix it up a bit. But yeah, all of these clips, it's like, man, time has gone by, hasn't it?
It has. 3 parts, man. We went deep. We went in. We went deep. It was good.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful that I even found just the right clips because it would just take me like forever just to find specific ones. But for Evangelion, there's like a lot of action that's been going on. But yeah, because you usually see like Shinji, Asuka, Misato, who by the way, Allison Keith, chef's kiss, and
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
so many
yeah.
different characters, and it's like just hearing a lot of these actors all over again. It's like I know everybody just says like, "Oh my God, it's just like my childhood," but yeah, it really is like a trip down memory lane. These characters really were a part of our childhoods. They really were. Yeah,
Well,
but
yay. I'm so glad.
Yeah, thanks so much. So thank you for making childhoods happen. I can't really think of
You're
anything.
welcome.
Yeah,
It
but
wasn't intentional. It was a nice byproduct. It's fun to create stories that mean things to people.
exactly. So I guess to wrap this up, what is something, because I know you probably mentioned or promoted a couple of different projects here and there, but I just wanted to know from you, what can we expect to see from Miss Kimberly Yates in the near future?
Well, the best way to keep up with me is to follow me on socials, particularly Instagram. That's the one I'm the most active on. So I'm at Kimberly Yat, just so Kimberly KimberlyYat. There is a Kimberly Yates. She has like no followers and no posts, and she doesn't follow anyone, but she
Okay,
hangs on to
okay,
she hangs on to that handle.
that is good to know,
Um,
just in case if people get
so
confused,
yeah,
I'm
so
like, wait a
I'm
minute, is this?
it's Kimberly Yat. And then the other thing is my play. That's kind of the
Oh,
big,
yeah, yeah,
big
yeah, yeah.
project. And that handle is, it's called Le Joie, a play about suffering, but the handle is at Play La Joie. So it's PLAY and then LAJOIE. It's the French word for joy. So at Play La Joie on Instagram and at Kimberly Yat on Instagram. See me there and you can find out all the good stuff I'm up to.
Excellent day. So, I think that's pretty much about it. I know there's more that we probably would have discussed, but I guess to close this out, when it comes to, I mean, nobody really knows what's going to happen in the future, especially with these strikes and a presidential election coming up. But regardless, what would be like your closing thoughts on just everything? Like, if you were to wake up tomorrow and just think about, man, what is something that I could do to make a day just 1% better? Or just how would you leave your legacy? What would it be and why?
To remember to do something you love that's in your control. So every day to, no one ever got points for being the good kid, right? You can be a
Hmm.
good person without sort of being a rule follower, and only you can live your life. So I think if tomorrow wake up and say, wait, what's something I want to do that I can do? And you might say, I want to star in the next Marvel film. Well, that's not within your control. So, what is in your control that gives you that same sensation? Like, figure out what the craving is. I sometimes think, like, in terms of a nutritional analogy, if I'm hungry for like a bag of chips, but I don't want to eat that, like, what am I craving? Do I want the salt? Do I want the fat? Do I want the crisp? And if I don't have a bag of chips here, well, wait, I have some cucumbers. I can put some salt. Does that translate? Or no, maybe I want an avocado with salt. Maybe it's that I'm craving. So think about what you want to do, what you really want to do, and then make the conversion, right? What's it do the version of it that's in your control. That's what I would say about making tomorrow better.
Yeah, amen. And any last bit of advice you have for those that aspire to get into this, or just do anything in life?
Don't let anybody dissuade you. It People always talk about how hard the business is. You know what? Life is hard. It just is. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Hmm.
There's not that many easy paths. There's no real easy path. The best path is the one you're excited about. And it's I think it's worth the risk. I think it's worth the risk. So don't let anybody talk you out of it.
Yeah, amen. I just want to thank you so much for your time. I know we kind of had to, there is so much changing up, like with scheduling, but I'm just so happy that we finally got this to work. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you, Robert.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess to actually close this off, let me see. For an outro, let's have a little bit of fun here. Can we hear, sorry to do this, but can we hear one of your characters give a outro or just yourself? Like, what would your outro be for
I'll give an
this?
outro. What do you want the outro to say? What do you want it to be?
Just anything.
Let's see. I don't know if I can match the characters because I really have to have them in my head, like listen to them again.
Sure.
But a lot of my characters just sound like me anyway. But I know that Minnie May, this is her tagline. So we can leave with her tagline. It's my turn.
Yep, it's my turn indeed. So, this is Robert, and this is Kimberly, and thank you for watching Station Square, and expect to see this up at some time in the next week or so. I don't really know, and yeah, I just wish you all the best, Kimberly, with anything that you've got going on, and yeah, any last words? Like, or did we get anything? Everything that we want to
I
say.
think we handled it. I think we covered it all, Robert. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Yeah, and I know we just plugged in your socials and everything, so we should be good on that. But until then, until next time, folks, this is Robert, this is Kimberly, and thank you for watching Station Square. I salute thee. Oh, and if anybody's at San Diego Comic Con, tell me how it goes, because I unfortunately couldn't be there this year. Fingers crossed for next year. I always keep saying that, but tickets, man. But
My
to
my
anybody,
cousins,
yeah.
my cousins at San Diego Comic Con, and she just sent me the news interviewed her, and so she's on an interview. It was super fun. So if anybody
Okay.
sees Sarah Yates, a little interview of Sarah Yates, that's my cousin.
Okay, I'll probably plug it in when it comes out. So, yeah, if anybody's at SDCC this weekend, have fun, have a great time, eat plenty of popcorn, enjoy the fireworks, go to SeaWorld if you can. I don't know what y'all gonna do out in San Diego. And brofist, handshakes, all that good stuff. Stay no COVID stuff. But yeah, keep yourselves protected from that darn virus. So until next time, folks, this is Robert, and I'm probably gonna get some sleep after this. So until then, see you next time, and have a good one, folks. Happy July, and have a good weekend. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.